Well, welcome everyone to sunny Arizona. I just sit here wondering, what kind of trouble can I get myself in today? So I thought, maybe I should do some dry washing. I am in Arizona, where it's hotter than hell, and today is, oh crap, who cares what day it is? I don't know what day it is anyways, but we're gonna do some dry washing today. So if you've never seen a dry washer operate, or you're wondering about dry washers or whatever, we're gonna talk dry washers. And I got a lot of different dry washers set up. We'll talk about the different ones and how they operate and all of that. And what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna get the material from where we've been running some recirculators and all the tailings and that. So what I'm gonna do is vacuum that stuff up. Then we're gonna go run it through a dry washer. See that sun up there? That means it's starting to get hot. Probably only about 147 right now. It's supposed to get about 290 today. But it is summertime there and it does get hot. Hey, welcome to Arizona. Hey, please like, share, subscribe if you find these videos interesting. Sure appreciate it. Ring that bell, as they say. That way you can get notified instantly when a new video is posted. And you never know, we're going to be giving away some gold one of these days soon. That's right, gold. We're going to be giving some gold away. Anyways, let me show you what we're doing today. My friends, is what they call a vacuum. We like to use these out in the desert. But this is basically just a leaf blower is all this is. And they've attached it to a lid. And there's a 5-gallon bucket. They've got a hole in there. And this just sits up on top of it. Well, you know how leaf blowers work. It sucks air in here. So this creates a vacuum to suck up all the material on the ground. You can use these for, if you're out cracking bedrock and sucking in between the cracks. You don't want to stick them in water. They probably don't work too well underwater. But so this is how this is going to work. And all of this around here is just all tailings from people running other types of equipment, recirculators and all that. So I'm just going to vacuum some of this stuff up, and then we're going to run it through a dry washer. So let's do that. Pretty well tell. Ooh, you see that fire come out of that? Woohoo! You can pretty well tell when these are full because it kind of loses its suction, and that is full. Whew. All right, now let's talk about dry washing. If you've never heard of a dry washer, basically they only work when the air or your dirt is dry. If it's wet, forget it. So dry washers have to be fairly dry for them to work. But out here in the deserts, it's our basic only way we can get the gold. So let me show you how a dry washer works. Dry washers. Yeah, I've collected a few of them. I even got a few more back there in storage anyways, but well, let's start over here. Basic types of dry washers. This is what's known as a puffer. These are both puffer dry washers. In a way, a puffer dry washer will work. Let me take this out here. Get this out. The way a puffer dry washer works is you got these baffles in here. And then you've got an arm that will spin around on a motor. And what happens is, so when this box here, when it goes down, it sucks air into your box. It blows these open and air comes in. Then when it first pushes back up, these will open up and it blows air out into the box. So that's the way basically puffers work. Don't have constant air. So the boxes tend to be a little more steeper because what's happening is it kind of has to puff it in. So it goes poof, 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 all the way down. Now the riffles on a dry washer or opposite than that on a wet system. Because as the material is coming down, your heavies get stuck right here in front of your riffles. And of course, on the wet system, it's the opposite, and as the water flows over, it eddies and they get stuck behind there. You got two basic types of riffles. These riffles might be like on a 90-degree angle, but on some dry washers, like this one here, you have your riffles that come down as a 90, but then you've also got these that's bent over. These are more of a Hungarian style riffle on these dry washers here. So, but they're bent, so the material is going to get stuck right here behind there, and this here just allows it to trap it better, the heavy gold, where it's not going to blow itself back out. Now also, on these dry washers here, there should be a dead air space, so you can see where each one of these lie at. These riffles, where the box is going, or the riffle is going to sit right on top of this here. On the back side of this should be a piece of tape. And what that's going to do is when your material comes down and that heavy gold settles behind these riffles, by having that little piece of tape creates a dead air zone. So that way the air is not just going to keep blowing it back out. And I can show you another example over here. See this right here. Now you can see how they've got this type of a system laid in here, and this tray sits up on top of that there. So behind each one of these riffles right there, that there is going to overlap it. Okay, so you can probably see it better here with this plastic on the back side of that there. You can see how that plastic, I don't know if you can see that good, but that plastic is about an 1/8 inch over that bottom riffle. So once that gold gets trapped back behind there, it's not just going to blow itself back out. Now on this type of a dry washer, you have a fan. And what happens is, as you're using a leaf blower to blow the material, or blow your air into this box, you're getting a steady airflow coming in. So you have a fan in here that will spin, and that's what's blowing air into the box. Now on these fans, there's a counterweight, and what that does is throw that out of balance. So as it's spinning, it's also shaking the box. So you kind of got the air is pushing all the dirt material up into suspension, and then the vibration is settling that heavy gold out. And as it's traveling down, because these don't have as steep of a pitch, so this is basically like your sluice box is 1 inch per foot, because you want that material really to stay up on top of your sluice as long as possible before it actually falls off and gives it a chance to settle out and get stuck behind these riffles. Now a lot of these dry washers have these chutes that you can open and close. I'm going to show you what happens with that. So you shovel your material up on top. It's got a 1/2 inch classifier. Most of these all have 1/2 inch classifiers up on top. So the material goes through there. The heavier, bigger rocks will fall off. Everything goes through the 1/2 inch, falls into there. So with the chute, if you know, like sometimes it'll bog itself up, like it'll get stuck and you got to open the chute or stick your fingers down in there to get it to loosen up. But basically what happens is the heavier rocks will tend to come down first. So you have to open that chute up to allow those heavier rocks come out. Then what'll happen once all the heavy rocks is out, now you got your smaller stuff, your smaller sands and gravels. So now they're just going to start flying out of there. So now you got to hurry and close the chute. So you've got to find that happy medium. And what I found that works, when you attach your hose onto your motor, there's a hose clamp on there, so you're going to have to tighten that hose clamp. So what I have found, if you just stuck a screwdriver that's just long enough to go through the hole, but not long enough to punch into your material, but just long enough to go through the hole. So as you're shoveling in there and it tends to lock up on you, you can just bang the screwdriver, and that'll help, you know, keep that material flowing through. So try to find a constant setting on that there where you don't have to constantly keep adjusting it all the time. Since your hose clamps, though, I like to use just a nut driver, since they got that nut on there, and trying to use a regular screwdriver to take them off and on are a pain in the butts. So I like to use a nut driver, but you still keep the screwdriver with you also. Dry washers come in all sizes, from small to medium to large to super large. Basically, a dry washer only consists of 3 parts. There's the hopper, there's the sluice box, and there's your airflow. Now this one here uses, you know, a larger motor because it's a larger box. But again, it's the same principle. You got your regular riffles, and then they come down to that Hungarian style riffle. And if you pull this out, you're going to see your dead air spaces up underneath. And sometimes dry washers, well, they're just different types. Like this one here, they've got these little pins in there that the feeling is, you know, it kind of helps start to separate the material and spreads it out as it starts coming down. But this plate here is good because you got your dirt material constantly falling in. And if you don't have a plate there, it's just going to hit that material, and you're constantly going to have to keep replacing that material. Material here anyways, just because of the fact that all this, you know, your rocks and your gravels is constantly chewing this material up. You can just buy this. You can buy it at any prospecting store. They sell it. Most manufacturers that manufacture dry washers probably sell it too. You can also find it in a cloth store. I'm not sure exactly how you pronounce the name, but it's something like Vitris or something like that is what this type of cloth is. It's you can see through it, but yet the fabric are pretty thin. You can still get air up into it, but it doesn't let a lot of your larger rocks go down. So I had to replace this cloth. I just haven't trimmed the excess off yet. Now, if you got a vacuum like this here is, using the vac motor, like right here, so this also will double as running a dry washer at the same time. You don't want to leave the motor on the bucket though, because you'll tend to lose suction. You'll get more air suction by taking it off and just running this way rather than just leaving it on the bucket. I know some of these buckets, they put extra holes and stuff in there, so you can do that, but I have found you'll just get more air if you take them off. And I've seen some people make a mistake. They'll set their motor like this up on top their buckets, and what happens is this will get hot and it'll start to melt the bucket. So you want to just actually set this off the ground, and since this is sucking in air, you want to make sure that it's not right in the way when your dry washers or you know, dumping and that wind's blowing all your excess dust away. Try to make sure that the motor's not sucking all that dust up too. You know, dry washers have been around for a very long time. They've come a long way from your olden day style type ones that the old timers used. It's true, dry washers are dusty, so some people get paranoid and they want to wear these masks. I've lived out here in Arizona and I've dry washed for, geez, I don't know, since probably mid-90s when I kind of started. I've never really wore these masks. I don't like to wear them. I find it harder to breathe. But maybe that's why I can't breathe nowadays. You know, valley fever and these other viruses going around. But so if you want to wear a mask because of the dust, wear a mask. But you should always have a good pair of gloves, because as you're shoveling your material up and then raking it down, sometimes you may get a scorpion or something up there, and you don't want to get bit by that, or cactuses and stuff like that. So, you know, a good pair of gloves is always good. You know, like I was saying, dry washers basically work in the desert or when the material is dry. I've used them in, you know, other parts of the state, you know, like California and Utah and Nevada and Idaho and Montana and of course Arizona and New Mexico. But you go back east, and that's a little tough for the dry washers to work because it's so damp back there. And the way you can kind of tell is if your dry washer material is too damp to run. If you grab your material and squeeze it together, and if it clumps, then it's starting to get too damp to run. Some dry washers will still kind of run a dampish dirt. You kind of have to maybe sometimes run it, you know, once or twice, but but you can see this just doesn't stick together. So this is pretty dry dirt. It'll work pretty good. This is a lot of sand in here. Sometimes you won't get a lot of sand. You'll get more, you know, dirt. But sand and dirt, the sand tends to run better than the dirt does. You know, when you're running your material through a wet system, all these like little dinky dirt clogs and pieces of, you know, dirt like this here in water, these will break apart. So any of that fine gold that's stuck to this here, you'll get that in water, but in a dry washer, you're losing that because it can't break that down like water does. So these little pieces of clogs, if there's any gold on them, is gone in your tailing pile. Sometimes some people will actually take this stuff, it's classified, and run it through their wet system. I know sometimes if I'm bored, all these piles here, I'll turn around and run them through the wet systems. Now I know gold separates better in water than it does with air. Dry washers probably only have anywhere from a 70 to maybe a 90-something% recovery rate. So they're not the best method for finding gold, but what else do you have? Well, haul water out. I mean, water at 8.4 pounds per gallon. Haul some water out and see how much weight that is. And plus that dry dirt just sucks up the water. So I don't like to haul water all over the place. I just assume take a dry washer. I can run these dry washers fast, almost as fast as I can shovel in there. It'll just clean itself out and process the material. When you are running the dry washer, you can kind of tell. You want to see the waves as they come up and over, just like on a sluice. And you wanted your box to kind of be as level as possible, just enough. You can kind of tell if it's bogging up on the back, you want to raise it. If it's bogging up on the front, then you'll want to lower it, or vice versa, ever how that goes. You just keep an eye on it. But you'll start to fine tune it as you shove it in or start shoveling material in, and you may set your box, but once you get weight up on here, it'll drop it back down a little bit further too. But I like to run mine just as flat as possible and keep that material up on top of the box as much as possible. If the material is just flat lining coming straight across, then you're not giving it a chance for that heavy gold to settle out. And you, like I say, you want those waves coming up and over each one. You don't necessarily have to see the riffles, but you'll want to see those waves coming up and over, then you know it's running properly. Now every dry washer is different, so depending on the dry washer, the airflow, the amount of air you got to put up into it will vary. If you're in a heavy box and an aluminum box and a steel fan and all that weight, steel riffles, these will be a little heavier boxes than something just maybe made out of a plastic. So you may not need as much airflow on that as you would need more airflow on this here. So you have to watch your airflow. You don't want too much air flying in there where you're just blowing everything out. You don't want too little airflow where it's just not creating the shaking and doing what it needs to do. But basically, if you run your motors about half speed, maybe just a little bit past half speed, it's probably sufficient and should do just fine. Also, you'll want to keep an eye on them when you're shoveling. If your riffles start to fill up with black sands, well, there's really no place else for that gold to go, so the gold's going to float right over on top. So keep an eye, and if it starts bogging down, becoming heavy with all that black sands, do a cleanup. Sometimes I've had a magnet stuck right to the end. I'll just put like an earth magnet right here, and I can really see where there's a lot of black sand stuck onto this magnet right there. You can take a little magnet and just reach in there and pull some of that out. But if you're in an area where you're getting a lot of black sands, clean up more. I basically only like to run a dry washer for maybe 20 minutes anyways. I'll just pull the tray, dump it, and just slide it back and keep on going. I'll bring home more concentrates to pan out, but I tend to run my dry washers less. 20 minutes is all I like to run them for before cleanup. Protect your piles before you leave, so have a metal detector with you, because this here is only a 1/2 inch classifier, so everything larger than a 1/2 inch will fall off. And I have seen actually big nuggets go through there and on there and basically will float right on out. So you want to make sure those waves are there and it's not running too fast. So if you've got a bigger piece of flat gold, it can float right on out. So check your piles, metal detect them when you're done. Washers all have a 1/2 inch screen up on top. Some people I've noticed they'll even put maybe a 1/4 inch screen up here on top, just to break the material down, even further down to 1/4 inch rather than a 1/2 inch. And it will tend to run better. It'll run slower because, you're not putting as much big stuff in there. But of course, if you live someplace where, the gold is so fine, you ain't worried about catching any nuggets or anything, then hey, that might work better for you. Also notice on all these dry washers that it's 1/2 inch. Every single one of these are 1/2 inch, and see how it's running. Your holes, your 1/2-inch holes are running this way. Look at this one here. This one here is running straight up and down. Now, somebody told me, a manufacturer told me a long time ago, the reason some people run it this way is because they can get more of this material out of a sheet than they can running it the other way. Now, there are a lot of different dry washers out on the market, and some will probably work better than others, and you're just going to have to determine which one you like, because I've heard it all from everybody running dry washer. Oh, I like this one. Oh, I like this one. And I might think, well, that one sucks, but it's my opinion. I've got my favorites. Other people have their favorites. But I've never, ever in my entire life met a manufacturer that builds these that says, oh, my dry washer sucks, don't buy it. So don't necessarily listen to a manufacturer. Listen to the people that are running them and ask them why they like it for. And do the research, and you'll soon find out that one maybe tend to work a little bit better than others. You know, some dry washers don't have that Hungarian style riffle in them. I tend to like that Hungarian style riffle. Some people say, but it doesn't allow the material to come off. Some people don't like this big lip on the back of their dry washers. They say it just holds the material on, so they cut it off. Washer's different, so like I say, you're just gonna have to find which one you like, which one works for you. If you're in the market of, you know, wanting to buy a dry washer, just do your research, do your homework, or ask people that run them, you know, which ones they like and how come they like them. These ones, your puffer style dry washers, they just use basically the 12-volt battery, so these are more quieter. They don't create as much dust, but I don't know if the recovery rate is as good. They don't have the Hungarian style riffles in there, and they don't have the constant airflow, but they're quiet. And so if I'm going someplace that I don't want to really, you know, people hearing me a lot from over the other ridges or washes, I'll take this one out there. They tend to run a little bit slower, and your material has to be really dry to run through one of these. Whereas something like, you know, your plastic box, these ones here, your material can be a little more damper, and you can still run them through there. But I tend to like the constant airflow of the dry washers a little more better. Differences might be the wider box. See, this is a wider box. This here is a smaller box, narrower, the sluice box part of it. So it just depends on, you know, different factors. 2 cycles. Your leaf blower that you're putting air in. Some states won't allow you to use a 2 cycle. Here, leaf blower happens to be a 4 cycle. So maybe some states you can have to use a puffer because you have to use a battery to operate it. Now that's about basically how dry washers work. If I didn't cover anything and you got any questions, feel free to contact me and I'll answer the best I can. I may not tell you which dry washer I like the best because I don't promote any of them. I just use what I like to use. Sometimes I'll use different ones for different reasons in different places. That's probably why I have so many. I have a big ones down to the little dinky ones, depending on where I'm going, what I want to pack, what I want to haul, and how serious I want to work that day. I think what I should do now is fire one of these bad boys up and run that gravel through it and see if I get any gold out of that. Before I run the dry washer setup, I'll make sure the box is kind of where I want it to be. Make sure that your chute is probably pretty well closed, and then once you start to run it, you know, open it up to where you need to have it. And a lot of times what I'll do is if I'm out in the desert, I'll just take some material sitting next to me or dirt, and I'll shovel it up in here or throw it up here just to kind of prime my box, I guess, to kind of fill it full of dirt to get it started before I actually start shoveling the better stuff into it. If it's a little bit damp and you feel like you got to run it twice, use some of this material here on your tailings to mix with your fresher dirt to kind of rotate it back and forth. And that way you're just not running tailings, so you're kind of running some good stuff back and forth also. Well, that ran pretty fast. Now I gotta find me a gold pan and go get me some water and go pan this stuff out. On this style here, you lift this up and then you can pull your screen out. But what I like to do, which I've too late now, but before you shut your motor off, just turn it all the way down to idle. Put a bucket or a tub right here. Lift this up and just kind of push down and let the air just clean itself out, all the box out, and you can just tap it a few times and clean it out that way. These other ones, you physically just have to pull the tray out to dump it, but this one here you don't. This thing tray will actually pull out like that. And see this one? It doesn't have no dead airspace on it. This cloth needs to be replaced. No dead airspace on it, but you can see where the lines are. So you could take some electrical tape or masking tape and just run a bead just in front of each one of them, just about a half or a quarter, eighth of an inch, just to give it that dead airspace. And there's the fan in here that, with the counterweight, how that spins. That's what that's doing. Every dry washer is different of how they do it, but they all have the fan of some sort and they all have the counterweight of some sort. Concentrates, I guess. Let's go pan this out. Tab, here's my concentrate. We're gonna dump them all in there, pan them all at the same time. To find any gold in here, because like I said, this is just all stuff that just gravels from people running recirculators that on the ground there, filling in little holes here or there. So I just wanted to get some gravels to do this test. But I figured, hey, if I'm going to run anything, let's run something where I might have a chance to find some gold. Be a good sign, test sign, wouldn't it? That'd be something if there was gold in here. But like I said, I'm not expecting it. You can generally hear the nuggets rolling around in there if there was. I hear some big rocks in there, but no noogies. Let's go out in the sun here. Yeah. Just as I expected. No gold. Oh, well. You know, some people don't like to dry wash, and that's okay. There's a lot of different styles of dry washers out there. Probably just as many different styles of dry washers there are pans out there. Everybody has their favorites and the reasons why. But, you know, out in the desert, there's a lot of gold out in the desert. And that's one of the reasons why there's so much gold left out there in the desert. It's just because it's harder to get to. Well, I hope I covered everything on dry washing. I enjoy it. Don't expect you to have to enjoy it, but I hope maybe you learned something, even if you're a pro or amateur or whatever, that maybe you learned something and picked up a tip here or there. But anyway, sure appreciate if you'd subscribe to the channel. It means a lot. And bringing more of these videos down the line. I think I need to do a video on black sand separation. You know, after you pan out and you get all that black sand with your gold, and sometimes it's a nightmare how to get rid of that black sand. So I think I need to work on a video on black sand separation. Maybe that's what I'll be doing next. But anyways, you guys all be safe out there. Remember, it's a rough world out there. So you guys all be safe. Take care of yourselves. Until our paths cross again, see you.